Hello, guys. Welcome to episode 53 of Learn and Become podcast. And today we have Deborah again. And how are you?
I'm good. I have a funny voice because I have a cold, but I'm good.
Right. Yeah, it's terrible to have a cold, like runny nose,
Yeah.
sneezing.
Yeah. It's not terrible. Like I don't feel super bad. It's just uncomfortable, like you said. But it's just blessed that I haven't got more sick than this um because Victor is a kid. He gets everything from everybody. So he got something and that's how I ended up getting it. But usually that doesn't happen. So I can't complain because I don't get sick very often, even though I have a 2-year-old putting his boogers all over me. So
Do you
yeah,
think
he
he
gets
got
his
it?
boogers all over me.
Do you think he
He
might
got
have
it playing
gotten
with
in school?
another kid.
Okay.
No, he got it because he plays with other kids who goes to daycare. So I think he got from one of these kids, and actually one. I don't think the other one does. And then, but it's nothing like super bad. It lasted like for 2 days, just really like sinuses. Yeah, can you hear my dog? That's
Not
just so
that much.
sad.
That's good.
No, she's so sad right now. Anyway, so
She didn't bark. She cried.
no,
That
she
was
literally
something.
cried right now. It is so bad.
Didn't sound like
I'll
barking.
take you out, Pepper. Just give me a second. Anyways, yeah, so it's just sinus and it just lasts us like for 2 days, 3 days. So I'm in days 2. I'm hoping tomorrow I'll be better. Yeah.
Yes, I hope so. All
Yeah.
right. So today we're going to try to go deeper into a few points that we talked on the last episode. And so today we're aiming to talk about learning how to learn, the translation in the learning process, the difference in learning when you are in a foreign country and when you are in your country. That's very interesting. And that will be about it. We might talk about like the learning process is like filling a glass of water, which was something from the last episode. So this concept of learning how to learn, I think the first time I heard it, Pepper's crying, but
Yeah,
it's not too loud. It's okay.
Okay, good. It's pretty loud for me. So I'm like, I hope it's not really that
No, it's not.
terrible.
It's cool. It's all right. So I think the first time I heard this concept of learning how to learn was, I think last time we recorded, no, the first time we recorded an episode together, you mentioned that when you realized that you couldn't learn the way most people do, so you decided to move abroad and all of that. So how do you see this concept of learning how to learn, and how did you realize that it was a thing?
So, what it makes me sad most of the time is that my brother, of course, and my brother is extremely smart guy. Like he's really smart, really intelligent, and he learned and he has, I'm going to say this, which is not a true statement, but I'm going to put in this way because usually it's how we express this idea, but I disagree with the idea. But you have that impression that a person like my brother has learns easier, right? They are smarter, so they in their learning process they have a what is the word in English? For them it's just easier to learn in general. So my brother speaks Portuguese, English, and Spanish in high, and he never went to a course. My mom never paid like any English school to teach him any of these languages. He learned all of them through school, like the traditional education we get for English and Spanish. He was selected to go to Europe when he was in high school, because he had a good Spanish. So he spent, I think, 3 months in Spain. And then he learned English, developed his English even more during college without doing his English school, all from whatever it is that he did that I honestly don't know. So my brother has always been very smart, right? He's the smart guy. Sorry. He's the smart guy. And I've always felt like because he's being always so smart, I feel like I wasn't as smart. I wasn't smart to learn. Not that I'm dumb, but I've never felt very intelligent, honestly. But then I grew up, and then I started working for a company that I started doing something that I've never ever done before, like in my whole life. I worked through systems that had technologies that I didn't know how to work. I worked calling people and talking about a process that I've never been exposed to, I didn't even know existed. And, I had to learn everything. And what I realized is that the way I learned is by doing it, is by listening to instruction and applying those instructions, is seeing in what I learning meaning. I'm not very good in theories that I can apply, or ideas that I may apply, I may not apply, right? So I was on the bottom of this company, right? I was like I was starting, and in maybe a year, no, less than a year I was in the company, I was already seen as one of the best employees in my project. And I was trusted with the biggest accounts to work on. I was trusted with the biggest clients. I was trusted to be in meetings with the clients. So because of that, are you sure you can hear my dog?
I mean, I can, but it's not like disturbing.
Okay, because it's really disturbing to me. Just give me a second.
Mhm.
Sorry, I'm just like trying to
You're
get her to
good.
stop being so upset because it's really loud for me. So it's
Yeah.
kind of hard to keep
It
going with
happens
my.
to me when somebody goes by the just like gets in or goes out of the building,
Yeah.
and for whatever reason they like to leave the door open, and there is this super annoying loud alarm that goes off and never stops, and it's like, can somebody close it, please?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
it's, yes,
exactly.
but
It's
no, you're
hard.
good, no worries.
Okay. Anyways, so as I was saying, so I was growing in the company by learning something that I've never done, and I was doing it very quickly. So I realized that, and it's funny because the first month that I was working for this company, I wanted to track my progress. I wanted to know how many calls I made a day, how many products I got returned. So I created for myself a tracking system. Even though the system I didn't care for the supervisor if he was looking at it or if he wasn't looking at it. I wanted to know my progress. And that motivated me to keep learning the process, because for me, knowledge is power. So if I understood the process, if I learned the process from beginning to end, I would be able to communicate better to the people I was on the phone, and I would avoid confusion, and the process would happen much faster and more efficiently. And sure enough, while some people would recover maybe 150, I was recovering about 600 products in a month. So like it's completely different statistics. And I know that because I developed so much, I started doing the tracking for my coworkers as well. So I knew how many I was doing, and I even improved the tracking system for my supervisor at the time because I was doing it already. So all that is showed me that I'm intelligent. I have skills because my whole life I felt like I wasn't as smart as my brother, and I feel like everybody's like that. I'm not as smart as somebody, my best friend, my cousin, my brother, my mom, my dad. We compare ourselves to others, but that's not about intelligence. It's about how you learn. And that's what I figured out. I figured out that I'm a very smart person, very intelligent. I just need to know how to learn. And that's how I developed. And sure enough, after another few months doing that for my supervisor, I was promoted, and I was responsible for a client that it was going down the hill, and I had 3 months to save the project and keep the project. And that meant I needed to figure out the whole project in 3 months, get results. And it was a project that was happening for the last 9, and nobody could figure out how it worked. So I had to do that for myself because the client was tired of explaining the same thing over and over again, and nobody would get it. So I went deep, but the difference between the before me and people that was there before me, and I was focused on only that. So I don't want to say that it's the other people's fault, because it wasn't. It was really just too much for one person to deal with everything else. But I was able to focus on that and get it right. But I went beyond. I read the information over and over again. I created diagrams and a system to make sense of this whole information to myself. And then I brought to the client and say, so here's what I understand. Then the client, yes, you're right about this, you're wrong about that, you're right about that, and that's good. And then from that information, I was able to pass that to the people who worked with me, and then they also learned what they were doing. And by knowing and understanding what they were doing, we saw progress. So for me, is I got an information, I applied the information, I brought to somebody who has more knowledge. That person corrected me and showed me my mistakes, which they are important. And then I brought back the corrections and established the process. And I taught. How crazy is that? I freaking taught something that I was just learning. So if you think about, that's another way of learning. Like teaching is another way of learning. And nobody ever told me that. So sometimes you, as a person in a learning process, will have an easier time to learn English if you try to teach English. Wait a second, what? Yeah, if you don't know anything about English, but you're trying to teach yourself or teach or learn with another teacher, a great process is teaching English to your teacher, or teaching English to your kid, or teaching English to your mom or your dad or whatever. Doesn't kids do that all the time? They learn something new and they want to teach their parents. I don't know if like if you don't have kids, you might haven't experienced that, but think about your nieces or cousins, the small little children. They come to you, it's like, hey, look what I've learned. And then they show you how to learn what they learn, and they explain to you the whole process of what they're doing, right? So So that's the way. And then you say, that's so cool, buddy. But I think if you do this way, it would be much cooler or much better. And then the kids learn again some process, right? Some a different way of doing the same thing they were doing.
Like
So
cycles, right?
exactly. So that's what I learned. I learned that I'm not a dumb person, or I don't have difficulty in learning. I was never pushed to learn and use the process that is necessary for my learning journey. So if you have kids, for example, or if you're teaching anything to anybody, give that person a chance to teach you what they understand and what they've learned from you, like explain to you what you just said. And I feel because in schools you don't get a chance to do that very often, but that doesn't stop that you can do at home with somebody, you know. So if you're going to an English school and there is 20 people, and your teacher just don't have the chance to listen to you pronouncing something, or coming to them and say, hey, this is what I understand about that topic, am I wrong or right? And they don't have a chance, find somebody that do, you know, find somebody that you can go and teach that in the way you understood, so they can say, yeah, that's right, but not completely right, or something like that, you know. So that's what I learned about me. I need to apply what I've been learning. If I don't apply, that doesn't bring meaning to me. But in a work environment, that is easier because you got to apply, right? So if you learn something, you're going to have to use in your work most of the time. And or maybe you're going to use it at all because you're going to say this, that's why it's nothing working, because this is not supposed to work. So let's change everything, right? But it means that you understand the process, you understand your needs. But for me, it's like for other things in life, like English, you gotta apply. But how am I gonna apply? Dude, apply by listening to something and using everything you listen in your head. And then speak when you have a chance to, you know, like you got a chance, take it, you know, or apply by finding friends that wants to communicate with you. You know, we've repeated. It's not big steps. It's really tiny ones, like really, really tiny, tiny, tiny ones. It does not need to be big steps. You don't need to be ready to go to a conference at work and talk everything you know in English. That's not what we are saying. We are saying, oh, I learned a new word today. I want to apply that word on my everyday life. I want to apply that all the time. So I learned how to say, I don't know, food in English. In English, so I'm gonna say, I want to eat some food. Eu quero comer uma food. You know, like that's applying. And over again, you use the word you just learned. That's applying English. It's just make the process much more easier and more interesting. You know, like it brings meaning to your learning.
Yeah, and
So
it's not something that kind of happened to you. Like it doesn't happen for you to learn English. You have to, or like there is no you were affected by English. It's more like
yeah,
I went after English and then I
yeah,
was able, like you're the hunter, you're not being hunted by
yeah,
whatever you're
yeah,
learning. And I feel
yeah,
like a lot of people
exactly.
go like, oh, I want to learn, but I don't want to do anything. And
Yeah.
magic.
Well, I don't have time. People love to use the excuse of time. I'm gonna put in quotes just because
Like, quote
it
unquote,
can be
time and
true, a
money.
real thing. Yeah,
Yeah, I feel like
it
time
can
and
be a
money.
real thing. It can be a real thing if you're relating your learning process of English to a 1 hour class in a week, but that's not learning English, that's going to class, you know? So time, sure, it can be a thing. You can be a real thing. You might don't have time to learn English, but you have time to practice English. And practicing is learning. You know, you will have time to practice English. Music, TV, Instagram, mind. reading, like you will find time. You have it, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, you have it, if you
So
practice.
it's all about that, being able to do something that you can and setting the priority. Feel
Yeah,
like if we're just in the default mode, surviving,
yeah,
we'll never have time to exercise, to eat healthier, to read, to
yeah,
like anything. And I feel like it could get to a level where it's so deep down that people are talking like about depression and this kind of things. They just go like they don't have time to do anything because they're just going through something that's consuming all of their energy. And sometimes
yeah,
we like that's an extreme scenario,
yeah,
but I feel like a lot of people, or most people, to be honest, just go through something similar on the
hmm,
surviving mode. Like
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
capable of spending 1 hour on social media, but I'm incapable of practicing 15 minutes on Duolingo or Drops or
yeah.
whatever app for free on the phone.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. It's funny you said that because I went to church yesterday for a women's group, and we are talking a lot about this idea of the spiritual growth. And there are five, according to this author, I can't remember the name, has five. The spiritual growth has five steps, and one of them is exercising. And what the lady was saying is that when you exercise, when you take not necessarily exercise, but when you exercise the care for your body physically, you are feeding your spiritual growth. So she was talking, giving a testimony like how she'd never been a runner. She couldn't run at all, and she went through a difficult time with someone, and she decided to start running. And what she learned was the running wasn't to run to lose weight or to get healthy. It was a spiritual run. It was a time for her to think about those issues that she was going and process them and find answers for the questions and the difficulties she was having. So her run was mental, it was spiritual. It was to work, a time for her to work on herself spiritually. So she was saying that this is what it is that you gotta understand that sometimes you need to take what is in the bottom of your priorities and bring it up. That way, that become a way of you growing spiritually. So she was saying, like, for us, like, where is exercising or care, self-care is in your priority list nowadays? Is it first? Is it 9? Is it 3? How? And then she said, now think about how can you progress one step up. So if your exercising routine is the 10th priority of your day, how can you bring it up to 9? That's not too much to ask, because that's the thing. People think that in a learning process, that topic, that what you're learning, needs to become priority number 1. I think we do that for everything, honestly, not just learning something, but exercising. I want to lose weight. You have goals, and then you think that goals needs to be priority number 1. But life happens, and maybe that week, unfortunately, the goal to losing weight by going to the gym 5 times a week will not be able to happen because you are busy. Life happened, but you need to be mindful. Like, okay, so I can do 5, but I can do 1. I can do 20 minutes. I can do a walk around my block. That's better than nothing. Like yesterday, I was feeling sick and I was supposed to run yesterday. And I told my husband, I don't want to run and get sicker, So, but I also don't want to not to exercise. So I was like, okay, I'm going to take Pepper for a long walk. So I took Pepper for an hour walk. We walked for 3 kilometers, and that was easy on me, easy on my body, but it was exercising. It was enough for me to feel like I did something, but I also didn't push myself to a limit that I wasn't able to push myself that week, that day, or this week in general. So people need to understand that it's like, look at the priority, you know, and say, how can I put that one step up? Because it's something I need,
That's
especially
awesome.
if you're learning English with the purpose of getting, because you know you need for your business, you know you're gonna be a better employee, you know that you're gonna be able to grow in the company or get a better job or travel, whatever it is. Maybe those goals are all the way down the road, but the process needs to start now, and that priority needs to be a little bit higher up in your right now life, in the moment life, you know. And but what I want to, just to close this question so we can move on, what I want to like just say to people is like, you are not dumb, you are intelligent person. No matter who you are, no matter what age you have, you are intelligent. I have, like, I went to the doctor and I know I have difficulty learning. That doesn't make you less intelligent. That makes you different. That makes you a person who needs to take different ways in the process of learning. But that doesn't make you less smart or less capable of learning. It just make you different. Your journey is might be harder, but it's not impossible. So what I want people to understand is that you are intelligent and you are capable of learning English. It's just a matter of a choice and understanding what type of um, student you are, you know. And once you understand that, apply it without um, fear, you know, fear that you're not doing it right, fear that you're not going to see result, you know. Just apply it and wait for the result. As smaller as it is, it's gonna come, you know. Don't need to be the way you've always learned in school, or that anybody told you that it was supposed to be your learning process, or how you've seen your sister doing or your parents doing or whatever, whoever is around you doing, and you think that's the only way of learning and you can't. Yeah, you probably can't because you're doing it wrong. You're doing it the other person's journey when it's your own journey. So if there is anything about all this time we spend on this question, is you're intelligent and you're capable to learn. Just find out how you learn. And that's awesome. And that's okay. If it's different than everybody, it's supposed to be different. It's supposed to be very particular. You know, it's you. Your learning journey, it's you, of who you are in the process, you know.
That's really interesting. And like, even we're almost 8 billion human beings. There are people like you. And if you learn how to learn for your style, you can probably help others to learn their
Yep.
style. And there is this saying by Albert Einstein. I don't know if you've heard it, but probably yes. It says everybody's a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it's a stupid.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
kind of
Pretty
like that,
much.
what you're saying, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And I feel like we've been living like that most of our, especially if you're not the smart kid in class, if you've never been the super smart kid in class,
I mean,
that's how you feel your whole life, you know. So, and if you are even the worst student in your class, then you feel even more like that, you know. So yeah, I saw a psychologist saying once that she gets her kids grades from school, and she never showed them their, what they call grade. Yeah, here in United States is grade, I think. In
for
Brazil is
the
bulletin, right?
Mhm.
So she never showed them their grades in for them. And she says, you know why I've never show them? Because their intelligence, their capability are not a number. The fact that she got a D or C or an F does not tell my kid how smart they are or how much they learned or anything. It's a way of the school to process and to give a feedback of the learning process and identify difficulties, but it's not a thing for your kids to look at, okay, so 10 is good, 1 is bad, I'm 5, yeah, I'm not so good. No, you're awesome because you made it 5. You got to 5. You know, so she never showed their grades. And I thought it was extremely smart. I was like, I never thought of that. And it's very true. We are not numbers.
Yeah.
Our learning process cannot be evaluated in numbers. It needs to be looked at as a whole. So that is a guide, but cannot be a reference, you know? So
That's so true.
that's very different.
And the problem is that we kind of create our own values out of that. So if the kid's
Yep.
like, oh, I'm 10, so I'm awesome. Or
Yeah.
it's not like I got 10 in a test.
Yeah.
And I'm 3, I'm not that awesome.
Can I give an example? In high school, I always struggle with math and physics. So I was taking the SATs, which is in Brazil is the vestibular, and I was taking them and I was thinking, okay, so every time I take them as a test for the real deal, I always struggle with math and physics. It's always my lowest grade. So I gave up on mathematics because I was like, well, I'm not smart enough for this. So I'm not going to try to learn this right now. So I focused on physics to improve my understanding of physics. So my mom got me a tutor and I went to the tutor and we practiced the test, the SAT questions and for me to take. And then this guy was teaching me and I realized all the questions are basically the same. They don't really change much. They change the context, the situation, but the idea that you apply is always the same. So I went ahead and took my SATs. Guess how many questions I got right for physics? All of them. Does that make me a very good in physics? No, I'm not very good in physics. Doesn't make me better. And doesn't make that I actually learn because physics and mathematics are basically one thing together, right? In many ways. And guess how many questions I got right for mathematics? 0. And you know how I didn't fail? Because I got 1 right by luck.
Almost an accident.
Yeah, the only one I was able to actually do it, I got it wrong. So did I learn physics really? No, I just got used to repeat the same equations, apply the same ideas to the same questions.
And
But did I learn?
That's a
No.
very good point to talk about translation, because what you did there
Yep.
was translation, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
you didn't
exactly.
learn the thing, you were just able to translate through equations and
Yep.
formulas. And like as you just said, translating formulas into the test didn't make you good or capable of dealing with math or physics
Yeah.
in different contexts. About English or language in general, how do you think translation can hold a student back in the process? Like if I use translation, it will actually hold me back. But if I try to learn it naturally, actually getting the meanings without using the translation bridge to learn, I can go further. Like, do you think it's a thing or it doesn't matter the way you take?
I think that there is a difference between translating and relying on translation. Those are 2 different things. To these days, I still need to translate sometimes, but I don't rely on translation to communicate or to learn something new. I actually first go through the process of understanding, and then if I needed to translate something to bring more meaning to me, then I translate. The problem is in the beginning, you try to translate and then bring meaning to you, and understand the process, understand what's going on. And then does not work. It really doesn't, So the translation is a tool, but it can be the only tool to learn English. And then you relying on only one tool to learn English, or else it's going to be like me in physics. I didn't learn physics. I just, like I said, I translated on equations to the questions that I was receiving. So, so if I have to apply anything in physics, anything else, I won't be able to, because I only use one tool, the translation, copy and paste, basically. That's what I did. Yeah, that's what I did, right? I didn't really go through the process of understanding what I was doing. I just went the process of repeating what I was doing over and over again, and that's a great way, because I do know something about physics. Mm-hmm. If you give me a question, now I probably won't remember all the equations. I won't have them memorized anymore, but it's not going to be something that I've never seen. It's not going to be something that I have no idea what it's about. I'm going to know what the question is about. I will remember applying some of the equations I've applied, but probably going to have to go and check again what was that and study again and refresh my memory, right? But if you come to me and say that, so you come to me and ask me anything about the job, for example, that I did in the past that I just mentioned in the beginning, I'll probably know to reply to a lot of questions that you would have, because I actually learned and I applied, and I didn't rely on just copy and paste. I didn't rely on just translating that, but actually improving that, because I understood the process. You changing the process, applying the process and all that. So I know if I was back to that company today, I wouldn't have a hard time going back to work and doing as a good job as I used to do. But if you put me to take SAT with physics questions, I'm screwed. I'm gonna probably get all of them wrong. So that's the same idea for translation for me. If you only rely on translation, you're gonna have a whole conversation with someone trying to pick out the words by translation, applying them to the context, and you're gonna be, I have no idea what this person just said.
Do you remember when I was preparing for TOEFL, and I had that one exercise with the word police, and I read police, and I didn't get one
and
right.
You were the whole time thinking about the word police. I was like, it has nothing to do with the police. Yeah. And I had a situation where I've always known the word like as the verb, right? Never as I guess it would be a preposition. So I keep reading this text and had like there. It started with like, I think. And I'm like, this does not make sense. Like, gosto in the beginning of the sentence, and I would read the rest of the sentence like, what? I don't get it. And then until my friend said, no, this like is not the verb like. This is the preposition like. I was like, oh, and then she translated to me, and then I was like, oh, now I understand, but I was relying only on translation instead of understanding. So if I had just ignored that word, I probably would have understand the sentence, because it's a preposition that makes a connection. I think it's a preposition, but makes a connection, but in the content, but doesn't give me the content necessarily completely, fully. Of course, you need that, because you do want to know if you're talking about an and or a how or all and or you want to know exactly, but in overall, you're still able to get more of the content if you don't rely on translating that one little word that you know. So that's the thing, is like relying only on translation not going to get you very far in the learning process of English, but it's definitely a tool that needs to be used. I had a person I've met once, and he learned English by translating music for himself, and that helped him learning English. And his teacher would be very annoyed by him because he would try to translate everything that he was learning every time, all the time. And she would say, stop translating. But that process of learning worked for him because he actually were able to get those translation and applying context and on understandings. But I'm sure especially in the beginning, that process was very confusing. He just had the interest in learning the lyrics of music, and it was something that he enjoyed. It was something that he liked doing, and that what was the tool he used to learn English. But in some point, if he is a different person, me, if I had to learn English by translating everything, I would be bored out of my mind. It just doesn't work for me,
Yeah.
So I think it's one of the tools you can use to learn. But the problem is when you only use this tool to learn, or just use this tool to evaluate your understanding in English or your capability. I'll give an example. I mean, I'm having a project with your sister, and she was like, I'm going to need your help because I thought I was going to be able to translate this text, but I can't because I don't have the time for it and I'm having a hard time. And I said, stop translating. Why the heck are you translating? You don't even need to translate. You just need to understand. So you have a whole paragraph. And if you read the whole thing down and say, okay, this is what I understand, and put into your words, bam,
That's it.
you understood. You didn't translate anything, and bam, you got something. And I told you, and then you come to me and say, so in this paragraph, in this topic, this is what I understand. And you know why I know she's capable of doing that? Because that's one of the tools every single school use for what? SATs in English. What do you do in English your whole life in schools? You learn verb to be and text interpretation because you read and then you need to go and answer the text talk about this, the text talk about that.
Mhm.
That's it. That's
Not
exactly
too
what you do.
complicated. And about
And you've
translation,
been doing it your whole life.
like you're doing it for 84 years. Come
Yeah.
on.
And you're probably thinking now, well, now I know why I sucked in English in school because I'm not capable of doing that. No, let's take a step back. You practice your whole life. You are capable of doing something about that. You got something like eight, 9 years in elementary and middle school, ensino fundamental, plus high school, plus college. Something you got it out of it, like
You better.
something. Just use that and improve it.
Yeah. That's really
So
interesting. People try to start from scratch. Like yesterday, I was talking to this group of students. They were like, "Oh, they're beginners." And they were like, "Oh, verb to be so confusing." It's like, "Yeah, do you think so?" So if I ask you, "How are you?" How do you answer? We're like, "I'm good." Like, okay. How do you say that you're happy? I'm happy. How do you say he is happy? And then I said in Portuguese, you're like, he's happy. It's like, all right. And how do you say they're not happy? Like, they're not happy. And using like Portuguese as a starting point, I was like, okay, so now let me show you what you just did. What you
you use
told
the verb to
me,
be.
yeah, what you told me is the thing. And about the translation thing and living in a different country. So like you nowadays live in the United
Mhm,
States, and some of your friends from college and people you
mhm.
know that went, do you feel like if the person relies on translation during the learning process, when they go, they have a hard time? We hear all the time people saying, "Oh, I know English, I know the things, but I can't understand native speakers speaking." Do you think it has something to deal with that?
I don't think it has everything to do with translation necessary, because it has a lot to do with pronunciation. So I think that's a big effect of why you can understand native speakers speaking. But I think that what happens most of the time you don't understand is that you're so related to translation, is that you're so nervous to understand what that person is trying to communicate with you, that you're going through the thought process of translating what she's telling you. You do not have time for that. Communication is too fast for that. Like, until your brain goes to the translation, go through all the vocabulary from your own language to figure out which one fits to that situation and that word that you've heard before, and then you go and reply to that, you're probably staring at that person for at least 30 seconds to say like, oh, now I understand what you said. Wait a second. I mean, that's the situation. So you just don't have time. And this thing you said about the people don't, a lot of the time they don't understand a verb to be, or they feel like they don't know English. I tell everybody that I used to teach, I said, you know more English than you think. So a lot of the time, some of my students, sometimes I would have their first class, a whole conversation in English with them, for them to come and try to communicate with me. And I was able to understand everything they were saying in broken English. Big part is because I'm from that culture, and that helps for sure. But at the same time, it was something, it was the beginning. So a lot of the time it's like, see, now let's try to talk in Japanese. I don't even know how to say hi in Japanese. So that's not knowing a language. But English is so available and so around us that it's impossible for you not to know anything in English. Like your wife, you even know how to translate words in Portuguese to English, even though you do it wrong, right? So a lot of the times people use the end shun, or whatever, depends on the word, how to translate. Like, for example, you
Conversation.
have what is it? Yeah, conversation, right? So conversa become conversation. That's the right one, but you go and get a bunch of wrong ones if you just keep doing that, right?
Yes. That's a connotation.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, right? So it works sometimes, but not all the time. So yeah. I had a student that used to do that all the time. I just laugh like, no, that's not the word. But anyways, I just want to say that translation is definitely a tool, but cannot be a tool, the only tool you rely on to have a conversation and to learn English. It's a tool you use to add to the whole process as a whole, because if you only do it, you're going to come here and you're going to feel like you don't know anything about English. But it's because you're not paying attention to everything. You're paying attention to only one thing, which is which word I can catch, that I understand, that I can translate, and I know what this person is trying to tell me. When if you ignore that, body language is going to tell you a lot too. The context you are in is going to tell you a lot too. So, for example, I cannot understand people in the airplane. What are their names? The people that work in first attendant. Yeah, the first attendant speak fast, low, and they don't open their mouths to talk. And then you have the airplane noise inside to make it all, that whole communication works.
Do you understand them in Portuguese?
I don't know. They don't.
Probably not.
Sometimes they do, sometimes I don't. But anyways, the thing is, they're gonna ask you, do you want a chicken pasta? And a lot of the time, like, I think she's asking what I want to eat. Yes, you're right. She's asking what you want to eat. And then I'm like, what do I want to eat? I always know in airplanes they have chicken or pasta. There's always the option, right? Or a meat and pasta. You're like, I don't want pasta, I want the other thing. So sometimes I'm gonna answer, just the first one, you know, like, and she's gonna give me, and I have no idea what I just ordered, but I know that she was asking me what I want to eat, and I got something to eat, you know. And if you're starving, that's good enough, you know.
Yes, that's the
So
goal.
if you don't even understand that, then you're screwed, because you may be gonna say no when you're very hungry, you know. And then you're gonna be for 10 hours, 12 in a plane that you starving without food, and then you're gonna know, and it's like, I don't even know how to ask for it.
And just
And
for
then you're gonna
like,
go and then they always go to that moment where you see people getting food around you, and it's like, oh, that's what she asked, you know. The good thing you have
you're
enough
like,
time to like, wait,
choose me.
yeah. And again, if you only pay attention to what she was saying and you didn't look around you, you wouldn't realize that what she's offering is either a drink or either something to eat. And your answer is going to be yes, because you're hungry, or yes, because you're thirsty. But if you're too focused on what is she saying, what is she saying, you're not paying attention to everything else, even the smell, like, no, thank you. And then you realize, oops, I should have actually asked for something to
It's
eat.
the power of context, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And
So yeah, that's what I would say for translations.
and about learning or developing while being abroad or in your like mother tongue country.
Yeah. So, you know, when I sent you that topic for us to discuss, I was thinking, what would be your view? What do you think is the difference?
Um, so when I went, I knew English, like I could communicate,
Mm-hmm.
and I was able to start from that point on. So I don't know how that would be if I knew nothing, like zero. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's easier because you have more uh, possibilities to try.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that what makes it harder is our um, our hard time to try. Like we're saying in the beginning, we think that we
Mm-hmm.
have to learn everything or that we have to know before we do it,
Mm-hmm.
and we have to have a 10 like in the test.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, like getting things wrong is a great way to
Mm-hmm.
learn. And if you are in
Mm-hmm.
another country willing to commit mistakes all the time, you will commit mistakes all the time and you'll be learning all the
Mm-hmm.
time. But if you're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I don't know how to say that. Oh, I don't know how to say that. So, like, we know that people
Yeah,
go and stay in other country for years and don't
yeah.
learn it.
I agree exactly. That's that's where I wanted to get. I was thinking about it and I thought, what is the difference? None. For me, is none. You have better opportunities for sure. You more introduced to that environment for sure. But if you don't choose to be part of that, if you don't choose to apply, it's makes no difference. You go back home without learning a language. You go back without knowing how to use what you've been introduced to. So for me, there is absolutely no difference in a way of, if you don't make the choice to learn and apply and use, you won't learn English. So if you are in America, you can come here and speak Portuguese the whole time, or try Spanish, and maybe you're going to come out of here learning how to speak Spanish but not English. Or you can come here and not be around anyone and not really apply and be quiet, and not really interact through words but just gestures, and try to communicate that way the whole time. Or you can, and then you can go back home and keep doing the same and still not applying the process, or the going through the process of learning the language. And at home, you can get everything you're learning and try to apply. and go through the process of learning and actually learn something, and then go back and go to that country, or maybe not, and apply even more, getting even more opportunities, but maybe not, right? So for me, the difference between learning a language in the foreign country and in your home, it's no difference if you don't apply and choose to use what you're learning. That's for me. But no, come on, Deborah, but it is different. Sure it is. It's easier. Being the foreign country that you are is easier in a way that you have more opportunity to apply what you're learning, harder in a way that you are so exposed that you can be scared, right?
Yes,
but you
that's the
have
point. That's what I'm thinking
to
about,
use it.
because
Yeah,
you might feel judged because you're different. Just
yeah,
like we're talking in the
yes,
beginning about school and about the
yes,
psychologist you mentioned.
yeah,
Like if your speaking abilities, understanding abilities are really low, you will
yeah,
feel embarrassed, frustrated, and you might
yeah,
not try because you don't want to
yeah,
feel that. And then
yeah,
you just
yeah,
go into the surviving mode again, and you just
yeah.
go through
And do
like
exactly
20
the same thing you
years.
were doing at home.
Yeah, and you're
You do
like, I've been
exactly
here
what you're
20
doing at
years.
home.
Yeah.
Yeah. You do exactly what you're doing at home. Keep speaking the same language you speak and keeping applying the same things you already know instead of applying the new things you've learned. And then you don't absorb and you don't learn. So when I think is like, I guess, facilitates as long you make the choice. It's all about a choice. So it will be different if you choose to do something different about when you're home and when you're in a foreign country. But if you're just the same person in both places, the process is exactly the same. It's a choice. You will either learn or you either not gonna learn at all. So if you're already applying, in your case, for example, you said, oh, I came already learning some English, so I know something, and that made me feel like this and this way. So what did you do during the whole process that you got here? You kept doing what you were doing at home, applying the things you've already learned at home and applying on your everyday, taking hold of the opportunities you had to communicate in English and to expose yourself to that culture, to that language, and improve your learning process. Or if you are a person that never tried, always scared of making mistakes at home, you didn't want to, you spent 10 years in an English course without opening your mouth, and every time you had opportunity, you shut up and you couldn't process what you learned, you're going to come back to this country and you're going to do exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
You're going to do exactly the same thing.
And that's
You're
interesting
going to go
because
try to go back to your comfortable zone.
yeah, it's interesting because it gets kind of takes us to the understanding that learning is a process, like in the last episode, Aunt Rosemary mentioned that it's like filling a glass of water. Like things just happen. But if you try to, like, I don't know, I feel like most of the time we try to get a lot of water, like a bucket, and just throw it in the cup, and the cup's like, it breaks. But it's actually a mental switch from I'm gonna learn everything today to I'm learning like constantly. Like, oh,
Have fun.
You're terrible. You're like, yeah, I know. That's why I'm learning.
Yeah, that's me with Korean right now. I'm learning Korean, and it was funny. Like I besides you and my husband, nobody really knows I'm learning Korean. Oh, and then I posted the other day, right, that I study Korean. I chose to study Korean that day when I didn't want to. And then my friend was like, why the heck are you learning Korean? Like what a random language for you to learn. And I'm like, because I do have chances just someday to live there. But even if I don't do it, I got curious and now I'm addicted to it. So I actually want to learn something. So that didn't happen for me for English, right? I didn't get addicted to English. I thought I have to learn this thing and I'm gonna do it, right? But I'm learning Korean for fun. And I'm thinking, I like the idea of learning something for fun. And for fun means, how am I gonna have fun in this learning process? So I watch series, and I just realized I chose the wrong series to learn, because I'm learning North Korean and South Korean. And then I'm like, I can't even tell the difference. but but okay, my friend said they are different. Like, if you say so, they are different. But I have no idea what's the difference so far. But it's interesting, cultural differences is shown in the show, so it's kind of cool. But most of, I'm actually having fun learning Korean. So when I don't feel like learning, I still do a little bit. Now you probably can hear my dog louder because she's right next to me and judging me. Stop, I will take you out 1 second. So so for me, the process of learning Korean, right? So this way, I feel like I will keep going. I don't have an actual reason to learn, or because I can go to Korea and speak English and be around people that only speak English.
Yes.
Or I can choose to use what I've learned from Korean and actually explore and communicate with people in their own culture, like, and learn a little bit more about them, because I understand the language, not like to communicate in the language I know, right? So it's pretty fun, and that's been a fun journey for me. So and then every day, sometimes when I'm like, I feel like I'm not freaking learning anything, or I'm not gonna learn ever, because this thing is freaking hard. And it is hard in a way that they speak so freaking fast. Like, if you think English is fast, go try to learn Korean.
Watch
Like,
a movie in
that's
Korean.
fast, dude. That's really fast. And the movement of my mouth is so different. The way the sound comes out is so different. It's pretty like Korean, the words are all here in the back. English is all here in the front. And I feel like Portuguese is a lot of in the middle and in the front. But Korean is all coming from the back of your throat.
That's weird.
Yeah. So the way I need to say word, it's so interesting that it itches my back, the back of my throat. That's how back the words come out from.
Yeah, that's
So
interesting.
yeah, so you need to open your mouth more when you're speaking. And in English, is all like here. If I want to speak English with my mouth closed, I still
Like
can speak a
this.
lot of things with my mouth closed. See, I don't need to really open my mouth, and that's what East Coast people speak like. They don't open their mouth to speak English, and you have no idea what they're saying, right?
Yeah, that's why it's hard.
So yeah, and in Korean, if you pay attention to the way they speak, you're gonna see them saying ah, opening their mouth a lot,
Observe
because
it.
the sound a lot of the time come from here, you know.
Mhm.
So so anyways, so that has been such an interesting journey that for me, if I ended up not learning anything or able to communicate in Korean, I'm still feeling like, but I still want to see it through. I still want to keep going and see how much I'll get done, So
Mhm.
every day when I think I'm not trying to learn Korean tomorrow, I'm trying to see how much I can learn,
Yeah.
and maybe it's not going to be a lot, but maybe it will be. Maybe I'm going to have, because I'm doing it without a teacher. And sometimes I need to go to my friend who is Korean and ask her to tell me how the heck do I say this, because I cannot get it. And she will, and then when I see her mouth moving, I was like, oh, now I understand, right? And I'm doing Duolingo, and Duolingo, I don't have that. So sometimes in Duolingo, they speak so fast that I don't get the sound right. So I go to her for her to teach me how I say something, because I can get it right. So so maybe I will learn Korean and go to Korean, and they have no idea what I'm saying, because my accent and my pronunciation is so poor that I don't, they really can't tell what I'm saying, right? But it will improve, because I will be trying, I'll be constantly trying and applying what I've been practicing, right? And it's awesome that it will improve. So all I want with Korean is really just test the progress. I want to learn something because something I've been having fun with, and I want to do it every day, 15 minutes, just to prove that by the end of this year, I actually learned something. That's just my goal for now. Like, I do not want to be a Korean native speaker, at least not right now, but I want to prove to myself that 15 minutes every day of Korean is going to take me somewhere. And every day I learn something new, and every day I try to apply somehow. Like yesterday I was doing a hike and I was trying to speak Korean on my head, and then I'm trying to remember all the words I'm learning, and I'm like, I can't remember that word. And I keep trying and trying, and it's like, what the heck I say that word? And then when I get at night, I have my 15 minutes Korean. It's like, oh, that's how I say it. I'm not gonna forget anymore. Sure enough, I already forgot. So which means I will see that word again,
It's a process.
and learn it. Yeah.
It doesn't happen overnight.
Anyway, yeah, it doesn't. And you have fun with it, just
Mhm.
prove to yourself that you can learn a little bit. And not like, it doesn't need to be everything,
Yeah,
it
you
doesn't need
don't.
to be, like you said, doesn't need to be bucket of water. It can be just a drop every single
Yes.
day until the cup is filled.
Yeah, that's it. So very
Yep.
interesting. This mindset changes the entire game.
Yeah.
And thank you so very much for bringing up those your perspective on those points.
Mhm.
It's really interesting. I hope it helps the people listening to us. Now
Yeah.
everybody knows you're learning Korean.
Yeah.
Just kidding. And yeah, that was it. Do you want to say anything else? Like any final
No,
considerations?
no, no. I just want to say to people, just have fun with the process. Try to have fun. Don't think that you need English for the business or for jobs or for because everybody speaks English. Just maybe if you change this mindset of I want to learn English just because I want to know something new. Maybe that's what you need to take off the pressure. Sometimes the pressure is something that stops you instead of push you, forward. So
Yes, that's totally true. So thank you so very much, Deborah. And you guys watching, listening, don't forget that you're a genius, as we said earlier today.
yeah, you're smart.
Yes, just find out what kind of genius you are, but you are in some capacity. So I hope you guys have
Yeah.
it.
You have already your DNA.
What was that? Sorry, cut out.
You already have in your DNA.
Yes, that's the point.
It's not something you already have in your DNA. Yeah.
So trust it. Thank you guys so very much. I hope to see you next week. And if you have any questions, please reach out. Take care.